That's what we need. I'm Clark on Temptress, and with this little device I got at Ace Hardware, I'm going to show you how you could fill your propane tanks anywhere in the world. Hi, this is Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to talk about propane. We're not going to talk about the safety of propane. I got another video on that. We're not going to talk about why it's the right gas, why you should be cooking with it. You should, it really is convenient. What we're going to talk about today is if you voyage with gas, whether it be propane or butane, whether you use American tanks or you're in Europe and you're using camp gas or whatever kinds of containers you get there, I'm going to tell you how to be able to refill these anywhere in the world. This is really, really important. Get your boat set up. Maybe you didn't think about the gas that much because you just fill up a bottle, take it out, put it in your boat, make dinner. Well, you get out sailing and life isn't always so easy. If you get to a place that has American fill styles or adapters for American fills, you're golden. And as you go cruising, you will probably find some big cities that have this, even if this isn't their style of gas or their chemistry of gas. That is if you stick around the Caribbean. If you go further abroad, you're going to have more and more trouble finding ways to fill your propane cans. And we're going to talk about how to be able to fill your propane cans from anywhere, and I mean anywhere, including some little island in the middle of nowhere. If you're European, then you may have butane. Butane commonly comes in those camp gas bottles. This is going to pose a bit more of a problem, mostly because of the chemistry and the pressures, and we're going to get into that. But what I'm going to tell you about just plain conversion and filling your bottles applies. Now, the camp gas bottles are simpler devices because they run at lower pressure, butane. I'm not going to go deep into those. What I am going to go into is the American propane bottle. The reason for that is they have legislated every safety gizmo feature that you could possibly imagine into these things, and every one of them is going to make your life difficult. So I'm going to explain how this particular bottle works, and once you understand this bottle, every other bottle in the world will kind of be a subset of that. So this is a good model to start with. Okay, this is a propane bottle. Of the modern variety. You can tell the modern variety because they have both internal threads for the old style connectors and they have these external coarse threads. You can tell also because of the valve in certain ways. I believe it doesn't have a screw anymore by law. There's a lot of laws involving propane. Some of them make sense. What they've added is a float valve inside. And when the propane level, and remember this is LPG, liquefied propane gas. It's a gas when you're using it, but it's stored as a liquid under great pressure. Well, fair pressure actually, not even that high. When the liquid level goes up inside the can, it floats this little float which shuts off the input valve so you just can't overfill them. In my experience, overfilling is not the reason for propane flare-ups. It's using them a bit askew. And then the liquid gas can come out the line, and when the liquid gas comes out the line, there's a lot more energy per, say, cubic inch. And if that gets to your actual orifice, your burner, and liquid gas comes out of that, well, it's hot there, it's going to become a gas instantly, and you suddenly have something that looked like how you want to boil a pot of water, nice and fast, yeah, that's a nice flame, to how you want to fire a hot air balloon, and that's dangerous. So what we've got here is a bottle with a fancy valve on it. The valve can be unscrewed and changed, but it's very, very difficult to do. If you ever want to do it, big wrench, that's your trick. This valve has a lot of features built into it. It reaches down into the tank. If it's a normal valve, it's set up to pull the gas from the top of the physical tank. There's a layer of liquid in here, of course. As you use the gas off the top, it boils. And when it boils into a gas and becomes available as a gas to use. Of course, as time goes on, that level will go down. The valve has a pickup line. Now, the pickup line, like I said, is usually right at the top, But if you've got a tank that's designed for horizontal use, it'll have arrows, this end up, in use, whatever. The pickup line actually goes around like a siphon and comes up to the side of the tank, up into here probably. That lets it, again, be in the gas area to pick up gas. This is important to know if we're going to transfer gas, because we have to defeat that system. We don't want to transfer gaseous gas. We want to transfer liquid gas between tanks. There's that float thing, as I said. When the float comes up, it says there's already too much liquid gas in the tank. Luckily, why that's there is supposedly so you can't pass the liquid gas out, but it's easy to defeat. If you were to turn this tank upside down, well, what do we have? Now we have that siphon at the bottom of the tank where the liquid gas is, and that floating thing is now in a liquid, and it's going to float upward. Well, upward is now open because it's looking for the surface of the deal. So we've totally defeated that safety feature. In my opinion, it isn't a huge safety feature because how the liquid gas gets to your stove is someone knocks over the can and just keeps cooking. And this doesn't solve that at all. There's a better way to solve that. That would have been cheaper, but I think the gas company's lobbyists wanted everybody to buy a new can, and congressmen wanted, well, money in their pocket. Here's another important thing. I picked this up. These are readily available. This is the end that would go on to your propane tank. Anybody cruising, buy one of these. Don't necessarily buy this one. Buy one that can go on to whatever can you have. If you have a camp gas bottle and you really do want to refill it, if you want the flexibility to do that, you're going to need the camp gas version of this without a regulator. So many of those have the regulator built right in. You're either going to have to find a way of defeating the regulator, or you're going to have to just find one without. I have online found some European companies that make transfer cables for this very thing, or refill adapters. If you get one of those, you're golden. You might have to cut the hose, splice something else in it for local service, but there you go. Okay, this is the American style that's available now. And again, it's been kind of safetied to death. It's got the appropriate fittings to both fit onto the propane bottle and press the little opening valve that's in here, because not only this controls the flow of gas, but you have to push a little plunger, and that's done as you thread it in. But it has a mechanism built into this little device that retards the flow of gas. The idea for that, I guess, is that it won't go blasting out faster than it should in case the hose is broken. I can barely blow through this. If I try to blow slowly, I can actually get a nice flow, but if I try to blow hard, it shuts right off. That's going to be a problem because we're going to want to move a lot of gas. So what we're going to do is fix it. Now, I know you're going to cringe, but remember, this is going to be used by adults that have already decided that they're getting on a sailboat and traveling around the world out in the ocean. You are taking so many risks that you are thinking beyond, so the ocean doesn't kill you. This is just one of those risks. It's completely up to you, and if you're going to stay in the United States, don't do this because the systems work. Your hands are being held by lawyers and Ace Hardware store guys, and just follow what they do and you'll be great. But if you're going to go traveling, this is what you need to do. Let's see if I can do this if it won't spin around. I'm taking a drill, and I can't do this. Going to go get a pair of pliers. Hold on to that. Okay, got my pliers. What happened is it's designed to spin, so I put the drill in and it just spun around inside. Grab a hold of it. If you can do it gently, that won't hurt the threads. Otherwise, you might want to wrap that in something, a little bit of cloth or tape or something, so that you don't hurt the threads. But it shouldn't have to grip it that hard. I'm not too worried about this one because honestly, I bought this as a prop. I'm going to throw it away. Also, as a prop, the world's crappiest Harbor Freight drill. I thought I had to drill one hole, I'd be okay. Terrible chuck. terrible, Chuck. Okay, I got it. Took a little bit, a few times in through with the drill. Even though I passed the drill all the way through, the valve inside probably jumped out of the way and came back. But eventually I defeated it, I killed it. It's now a hole. I can breathe through this relatively easy. It's still a small hole, but we're not in a hurry, we're cruising. Okay, now you own this. You might want to label it defeated safety device, whatever. Just take it with you. Chances are you might not even need it. But let's say you're someplace where what they're offering won't fit. This could be that it's tropogas, butane, some of those concoctions. We're going to go into the chemistry in a while. They are different, but they can be made to work in most cases. Or because the local fill station just simply doesn't have an American adapter. If you're in the bigger cities in the Caribbean, yeah, they're going to have adapters because there's a lot of cruisers that come through. But don't count on it. If you have this available to you and you get there and they say, oh, lo siento, senor, no, can't do it. You go to a hardware store, you get some hose and the appropriate fittings, you hook it onto this, and then you hook the other end into something that they can fill. Of course, you need to be the other end of that something. It might even mean buying one of these valves and doing some solder work, but you can make an adapter. Also, very likely, because this isn't the United States, and generally people are more helpful in particularly the Latin countries, if you just bring this, they'll say, yeah, and they'll go out with wrenches and take theirs off and put this on and fill you right up, give it back to you. So having one of these is a big deal. The other time you're going to need one of these, and you would need actually two of these, is if you're in an out island. They don't have a big propane truck where you bring your bottle to the truck and they fill it up, or a propane facility. They get all of their gas, all of their everything on like the mailboat if you're in the Bahamas. But there'll be some way of inter-island transport. They'll likely be getting propane in big bottles like this. The restaurants will buy big bottles, return the old one. It's just an exchange, kind of like Blue Rhino in the United States. Except they're not trying to rip you off by making slightly smaller bottles. That's the Blue Rhino trick. It's not cheaper. So if this is the case, and this might be the biggest part of this video, we're going to talk about how to get gas, liquid gas, out of this into this. To do that, I'll do that at the end of the video because there's one more thing we need to know about, and that's vapor pressure. I know this is chemistry-ish, but it's not very complicated, and it's really important to understanding how this works. And like most of my videos, if you understand how something works, you master it, and then you can apply that to other things. Okay, this is a liquid that becomes a gas. Just like water is a liquid, and you get it hot enough, it wants to be a gas. At standard pressure, where I am right now, I'm 60 feet above sea level. If I took a pot of water and I brought it up to 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius, bubbles would start happening, and that is the gas, the water is becoming a gas and escaping. I have hit the vapor pressure. I've hit that line. I've hit the temperature where a vapor pressure of 1 bar, 1 atmosphere at sea level, hit equilibrium. And that water actually won't get hotter, by the way. It's a great way to calibrate thermometers because as you apply more energy, it gets used up making the conversion. So the water actually is self-cooling. And until that water is empty in the pot, that pot is not going to go over 100 Celsius. Now, if I were to put a lid on that pot, I got a little more pressure, and technically the temperature comes up a bit. If I put a serious pressure cooker lid on that pot, and I brought pressure inside up to 15 psi, I don't remember the numbers right now, but the temperature to boil the water at that extra 15 psi is pretty tremendous. A lot more temperature is there, and that's why food cooks so much faster in a pressure cooker. If you climb a mountain and you try to boil something, it takes way longer. Same thing. Now the temperature has actually gone down because it's easier to boil that water at a lower temperature. Put the two together. If you're on a mountain, use a pressure cooker. You can cook normally and faster. Propane's much the same. This liquid won't boil until the pressure is below the vapor pressure of the liquid. And also along those lines, if you buy one of those silly little pressure valves that goes right here that I'll tell you how much pressure is in your bottle or how much propane you have, they don't work. They don't work at all. What they're doing is telling you the temperature of the liquid propane in the bottle and nothing else. The pressure here is the same if you have 27 molecules at the bottom or you have the whole thing right full. It's about the vapor pressure at the temperature. So if you want to know how much propane is in your tank, the only surefire way is to lift the darn thing. If it's light like this one, it's empty. If it's really heavy, it's full. And you can buy like scales, kind of like a fish scale, to pick the propane tank up with, and that'll tell you absolutely. Also, you can kind of sort of tell sometimes when the temperature is changing, early morning, evening, with one of those thermally sensitive strips that changes temperature, but I've never had one of those work for me. Well, that's off the topic. Back to this. So, we want to move liquid from here to here. First step, we'll invert this tank. Would have been nicer for me if that one was empty, and this is full for this demonstration, but in real life, this will be full, this will be empty, that's what it is, and it just happened to be my smallest tank here at the house is empty. So, you take a couple of these, put a hose between them, you put one there, you put the other one here. The liquid is going to flow out of this one into this one because the liquid level's up this high and you'd like to transfer it, and it'll work. We got to help it though, because things flow from high pressure to low pressure. Now, the easiest way to make a little pressure difference is just put this on the ground, put this up high. Just that alone will move gas, but it'll move it very slowly. What you really need to do to change the pressures would be either to refrigerate this one and heat that one. And people do that by simply putting dark things on this or just putting this in the sun. Maybe putting some wet cloth on this and making sure it's in the shade, and be patient, it will flow. But the American tanks have a special little super magic trick. And if you've watched the guy at the propane shop fill your bottle, you'll see that there's a little screw opening right here on the side. You can put a regular screwdriver in. If you open this, it opens a vent right to the top of the tank. That vent lets the gas out. You're wasting some gas, but if you let the gas out, of course, the pressure goes down. And when the pressure goes down, this is now a lower pressure than this one, and the liquid will flow. And the amount of gas you're losing is insignificant to the amount of gas when it's in liquid form. So you release that, and this will fill right up. Okay, that process will continue until either the liquid comes up and closes off that little float valve, or liquid actually starts coming right out of the vent area. In either case, shut it down, pick up your bottle, say, oh God, this is full, I'm great. Make arrangements to pay for what gas you've used. Expect to pay kind of a premium that way, but like, you know, if you can't cook dinner and you don't want to go back to a big city, this is a tremendous trick. And you're on your way with a can full of gas. As you travel around, you're going to get to a point where you don't find propane anymore. First, you're going to find tropogas. Tropogas is a mixture of propane and butane. As you get closer to the equator, you'll find more and more butane probably until you get full butane. Europe uses butane a lot for mobile applications. Let's talk about why. Well, these gases are very similar. Propane is C3H8. That means there's 3 carbons with hydrogens all around them. And well, that defines propane. Butane is 1 more carbon. It's C4H10. Now, they burn very similarly at a given amount. I haven't found anybody that's complained that's just run propane in their butane system or butane in their propane system. I personally have run butane in Temptress's propane system many times. I can't see the difference. Uh, Technically, there's probably a few BTUs difference. The big difference between the gases is their vapor pressure. Propane is a lot higher. So the equipment has to be stronger. The tanks have to be stronger. This is my big warning on you camp gas people. If you decide to put pure propane into your camp gas bottle, you've taken a bottle that, let's say, at 110 degrees Fahrenheit, that tropogas, that butane, would be at around 50 psi, where propane in the same situation at the same temperature is like 200 psi. This is a big difference. It's a fourfold difference. It's very likely that nothing will burst. An engineer never designs anything with just a fourfold safety margin. That would just be ridiculous. A little rust or something, it would pop. So very likely it will handle, but don't let anybody say, I told you to do this. If you're gonna put propane in a butane, really consider the situation. You probably shouldn't. If you're gonna put a tropogas, a mixture, find out what the mixture is, find out what the vapor pressure is, make your own decisions. But most likely what you're gonna do is you're gonna get yourself one of these and one of these, probably locally, and just maybe temporarily change the fitting and hook this up. You're going to need the propane regulator as well to be fully safe and compliant. But the output side of the regulator for both propane and butane is what we refer to, because it's an antiquity thing, 11 inches of water column. That's 20-some millibars. It's a very low pressure. It's less than 1 psi. But the point is, they're basically the same. So as long as you change out the regulator, the hose, the fitting, and the bottle, while you're in a country where you can only buy propane, you're golden. You get out of that country, you get back to a place where you can fill your camp gas. If you prefer to, just take your old system, thread it back on, now you're golden again. Now you got a flexible system. Why does the world use propane at all? Got to have all this higher pressure equipment? Wouldn't it be easier if we just all use butane like they do in the tropics? And why do they use butane in the tropics? Well, the reason for that has to do with vapor pressure again. The butane has a lower vapor pressure and it's nice and warm in the tropics. In fact, these cans could get particularly hot out in the sun. So you're going to have less leakage. You're going to have less general pressure issues if you use butane. On the other hand, if you go in a cold place, it can get so cold that the butane at atmospheric pressure simply won't boil. And that temperature for pure butane is around the freezing point of water. So if I was someplace where it was below freezing and I wanted to boil some water or heat myself because I'm freezing to death, and I turn on a butane tank, it just sits there as liquid, will not come out. There are stories of campers and climbers and such that have to put the butane tank inside and like freezing themselves to warm up the butane so that they can burn the butane so they can have hot drink to warm up. It's kind of crazy. Well, that's not a problem in the tropics. So they go with mixes of gas that have lower pressure. But if you're in Alaska or northern New York, where I grew up, you can't use the propane that's stored outside on a real, well, like any winter day. It's freezing for half the year. So that's the difference. That's the why. Why are we using it on boats? Well, it's the historically available gas in the United States, so we use it. There's the other hydrocarbon that's a gas, methane, carbon 1, hydrogen 4. Problem with that is, again, vapor pressure. If you want to compress it, you can in a very high pressure bottle, but now you've got compressed natural gas. That's how it's sold. Compressed natural gas per bottle size doesn't have much energy in it because it's just a compressed gas. It's not a liquid. If you want to go from that pressurized gas into a liquid, it can be done. Take a look at what Elon Musk is doing. That big ship of his runs on liquid methane. But look at the hassle that he has to go through to get it in. It's so hard to store that way. They only put it in minutes before they're going to fly. But on the other hand, if you think that's difficult, the liquid oxygen is a total horror. So there's that. Let's talk about safety. People that don't have a lot of experience with boats usually in their decision-making process say, propane's terrifying. It's heavier than air. If I have a leak on my boat, it's going to fill up the boat. And kind of one of the signs of a good boat, doesn't have holes in the bottom. So it's going to fill the boat up with an explosive gas, some little spark, and I'm dead. Well, that's all technically right. And in this world of easier electricity, lithium iron phosphate batteries, big cheap inverters, people are saying, I want an induction cooktop. Yeah, that'd be safer, maybe. Get a good inverter. Some of those Chinese inverters might not be as safe as propane as far as fire is concerned. So should you make that decision? Well, make that decision, but think about this. With electricity, the line of things that have to fail to make it so you can't cook dinner, you can't eat food, your rice cannot be digested by a human being, is a rather long list of regulators and solar panels and just lots of stuff. If you have a multi-burner propane stove and just a few spare parts, this virtually will burn. The trick is to make it not burn, right? If you have a plugged orifice on one valve, close it off, go to the next burner, you're still good. So propane is safer from that point of view, being able to actually live your life. Propane, though it can cause these problems, it just doesn't. I've been actively cruising now for I've been on a boat for 30 some years, living on the boat most of the time. I've heard one complaint about propane where someone had a leak and they got back and they smelled it and they just very carefully vented their boat over a period of time without electric fans. But they got it all cleared out and they were fine. And that's it. 30 years. And that's it. Following the normal safety things that every boat nowadays is built with, and that includes an electric switch that shuts this thing off at the propane locker. And a propane locker that if this whole tank were to rupture and vent, that propane goes overboard, not inside the boat. You follow those simple things, and I have another video on the safety of this. And you're fine. In my experience, you're fine. I have been out there and I haven't even heard stories about a boat burning down firsthand. Of course, you're going to hear stories and, the world's a big place. There's going to be pictures of a boat that this happened to, or the stories are that's what caused the fire. But it's rare. It's really, really rare. So I say cooking with gas, that's the way to go. As a backup to cooking with gas, I have installed a microwave on temperature. Simplest, easiest way, and really, really convenient to turn some of that spare electricity into cooking heat, but I still like the gas. Also, the gas is easy to cook with. You can use any cookware you want. It just plain works. Nothing barbecues like gas, so you're going to want some for your barbecue anyway. So I'm trying not to dissuade you from using gas. I'm trying to show you how to live with gas when you travel around the world and how to keep your life working in these situations. Well, that's about all I can think about on this topic. Thanks for watching the video. Bye from Clark on Temperature.